when you get the opportunity to come across the preamble of our 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, you get to appreciate that our history of political, trajectory has been one filled with instability. And therefore, to build, a stable political discourse, we found it prudent that we should have a multi-party dispensation as a mode of political participation. And of course, this comes with the freedom of association, where you're free to belong to any political party of your choice. And therefore, when a given political party takes over the leadership of the country, most likely the others become the opposition. And the fundamental, purpose of the opposition is to really, check and balance the regime in power, but also create a sense of accountability and transparency. In the most recent past and this week and last week, we have seen very interesting developments around political parties. Just this week, we saw the Honorable Semuju Uganda convening a given class or a given section of FDC leaders that were challenging the leadership of Amuriat Oboy and the Honorable Nandala Mafabi. When you go to the Alliance for National Transformation, one of the senior leaders, the Honorable Paul Miru, crossed to another opposition political party, and that is the National Unity Platform. And from the National Unity Platform, we saw honorable members like Honorable Kagabo,
Wow.
declaring his interests and association with the MK movement. So I don't know, all these happenings in the opposition, where does it leave issues of accountability and aspects of checks and balances? In a second phase, we shall talk about the students' loan scheme. You know that the Higher Education Financing Board did declare that they will not be able to finance the over, 10,000 students who had been approved for financing. Sorry, the over 1,400 students who had been approved for financing in the next financial year because of lack of funds. And I don't know, this is very appalling, because if you cannot prioritize our education sector, then what are you prioritizing? Viewers, welcome, and I shall introduce to you our panelists for this afternoon, and in no particular order. From the National Resistance Movement's Youth League, is a face you've seen on this show before, and the name is Nimrod Kakai. Nimrod, karibuni.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Good afternoon, our viewers. It is great to come and share our views. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists. We hope it's going to be a very interesting and engaging show today. Thank you.
Yeah, that is also my fundamental hope and belief. From the Alliance for National Transformation Youth Wing is its deputy coordinator for Northern Uganda. The name is Kelvin Ochaya. Kelvin, we're happy to have you once again.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, viewers, and I am happy to be here.
Yeah, we are very happy to have you too. Next to myself is, should I call him counsel? But yes, a student of law at Makerere University is Alan Aijuka. Alan also, authored a very interesting article about the MK movement. I hope we shall interrogate it later. But Alan, welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be back and to share my views with the viewers. Hopefully it's going to be a good discussion.
All right. The only lady on the show this afternoon is Kata Jorin. Kata is the Guild President of Victoria University. Kata, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, panelists. I am so honored to be here, and I hope to have a very fruitful engagement with all of us.
All right. Well, since we all hope to have a fruitful conversation, let us begin right away. Alan, I'll just begin with you because you're closer to me. And, how do you evaluate what is happening in the opposition, generally?
Well, I will start from this point. In any government or in any country, what determines the kind of opposition or the trajectory any kind of opposition will take is the political environment in which it operates. Our opposition stems from a great history. Like you said, the preamble of our constitution makes reference to the different political environments that we've had over time that were characterized by war, turmoil, and so many things. And most of these things had an effect on opposing parties as to the leading governments then. Right from pre-independence, the UPC, DP, Rango had started well before we even had independence. Then even thereafter, when Obote took over from the then president, the Kabaka, he had to see to it that the UPC dominates the government and then sidelines what was the DP. Then thereafter, we had governments that could not recognize like the opposition, like Idi Amin. You would not come out and say, we are an opposition party. There was no space for you. Even what followed, the environment that was created for the kind of opposition that would have then was one of violence. When there's a write-up about the referendum on political parties, which I'll talk about later, but one of the key points that they point out is that they were looking at what kind of direction to take in as far as agitating for multi-party politics is concerned. They were looking at violence, boycotting, and then what the DP guys would call kakuyeje, that they would work undercover. So during those days before the NRM, there were so many people with different sentiments, and they really wanted something for Uganda in their own perspective, opposite to what the ruling governments then were offering. So that is why we see some people now convening in Tanzania, others going abroad to the extent of reaching Libya, then
That's
Muammar
the Moshi
Gaddafi.
conference talking about?
Yeah, Moshi, and how different groups that were fighting Idi Amin came together and they formed a rapport to fight and oust a government that they were saying that it was
Hence they formed the UNLF government.
UNLF government. And thereafter we see the kind of opposition that followed. We had elections in 1980 and then 81 we see the NRA, which was the popular something army. Then they went to the bush to fight because they are disgruntled by the elections. The then kind of opposition that we had was in regard to the kind of political environment that we had. There was no room for you to come and air out views regarding to the government policy that was being implemented, with regard to the way laws were being enforced by the different enforcement agencies. So people would not have a platform. Let's say even parliament was a bit of, suffocated those days. The only thing you would say must have to be in line with the government, even within the army itself. So people saw that the only way to oppose government was through war. What we have now, of course, after the government, the NRM government came in, they first observed and said that the different factions or the different segmentation of Ugandans was out of the political parties. For instance, they were saying that the DP were, Catholic religious inclined. The DP were claiming to be, the UPC were a bit of Anglican, then Buganda affiliated. So they were trying to align opposition parties and politics with sectarianism, tribalism, religious factions. We know Amin was inclined to the Islamic faith. So they said that we need to have a way to bring together a country in forming the future of its politics. So that's when they had the initiative of the movement, the movement system. So the movement system was not a political party. It was a system of governance where they would say that political parties can still exist, but undercover. On top of the political parties, all people they can participate in politics under an umbrella that is the movement system, but on merit. You can contest on merit as a person under the movement system. But this one was not welcomed by these political parties because they felt they were being suffocated, and they felt that the then movement after the NRA, they felt that these people were trying to entrench their own people into the government. So that by the time they allow multi-party politics, they are the owners of the government. And subsequently, some people were dismantled. The DP, they felt that their ministers were being pushed out of government, and more of the NRA inclining were now the people in government. So since then, they started, so many people came up and, advocated for a referendum. Right from, I think, 2000, there was a need. They say there was a need for a referendum. So many people agitated for it. They even, I think, was it an election? They tried to make consultation here and there where there was a need to bring back political parties, and they said that they voted 90%. that they never wanted political parties to return there.
Is that the Paul Kawanga Samogiri landmark case and decision? But I get the context and the history that you've given us, which is very important in terms of laying the foundation for this conversation. And Nimrod, as I shift to you, is that, you know, with all these happenings and putting into context our historical perspective that Alan has ably given us, what do you make of what is happening in the opposition right now?
Thank you, Comrade Alan. Alan has given a very important background that informs the history of political dispensation in this country. What we are seeing today in this country, to me, is not a surprise. But before that, when you look at the basis of how these political parties are formed, to what we see today is just a result of the foundation of how these political parties came up. When you go back to the men like Ignatius Musazi, who formed one of the first political parties and how they disappeared, look at how the work of the bench Wanukas. You look at the work of Paul Semwanga and back to the work of the president of this country, you realize that most of the political parties are formed on individualities. The fact is that the departure of Colonel Kizza Besigye from Forum for Democratic Change left a very big vacuum.
Has he departed?
From active participation in leadership of the party.
But shouldn't that be a good thing? Shouldn't we have
now, you see, it definitely is a good thing. It's a good thing. But what I'm saying is it has created a vacuum, and these are the results. That these parties are formed on individuals, not on traditions, not on culture, some even not on ideology. That you find a political party and up to now it cannot define what it stands for. When you read the banner that was yesterday in Zambia, it had a theme, and the theme was saying redirecting FDC to its core mission. A political party that at this moment, since its inception, they are redirecting it. Now, what are they redirecting? It means there's a vacuum. It means there's a problem. Until there is a leader who can bring all forces to think together, and that's most of the founding fathers of these political parties, it becomes very dangerous or difficult to manage these political parties. Practically, the issue of FDC today, it is just clear that because there is a vacuum in leadership. I was indulging myself in some history. Honorable Semjunganda himself, in 2010, when he was voted into parliament, the Secretary General of FDC current, Honorable Nada Mafavi, was the leader of opposition. Honorable Semju was the leader of Kosase. He was being given a lot of foreign trips and a lot of cash. In 2016, when they have the election, Semju becomes the chief campaign manager for Honorable Nandala Mafavi, praising him day in and day out. Events as they continue, when they were outstated the General Muntu, Semju was at the forefront of supporting Honorable Nandala, enjoying everything. And today, he's still the leader saying, Honorable Nandala and Patrick, they are having money from the state, they don't understand where it is coming from, and they think they are taking the party in a wrong trajectory. Now, that speaks that there is a vacuum of leadership in such political parties. And that goes back to DP. It is the same issue of leadership in UPC. But it is the same matter in NOP.
Nimrod, must leadership only come from the founding father?
Now, that's what I'm saying. Is Uganda ready for political party dispensation?
Multi-party dispensation.
Exactly. Multi-party dispensation. Are we ready for that as a nation?
I think to interject on that, Uganda is ready for multi-party politics.
Thank you.
Now, it was demonstrated in 2005 when people decided that we need multi-party, that we need other parties to come back. If we need to have checks into the government that we have, because then there were so many forces that were coming up as against what the government was saying, but then there was no room for them to show another, to show an option. And the best way was through multi-party politics.
Thank you.
If you raise the question that whether we need or whether we are ready for multi-party politics, you need to go back to 2005 and have another referendum and ask the population
thank you so much. Now the question is, what is the role of opposition political parties in a democratic state like Uganda today? What's their role? To check the government. The question is, how far are they doing that? The only thing they waste time on, we've all seen, is leadership wrangles in those small political parties they belong to. They all be there discussing leadership over leadership issues. And that's why I bring the question, were we ready by then, or it was just an illusion that we thought about? Are we ready even now? Or it is something that is not a priority in the way of politics of Uganda today? Getting back to what you talked about, the wrangles in political parties will not end until the founding fathers, who are still lucky that are alive, go back and enable the transition that is smooth, that is cored on tradition, on culture of that particular political party, and on the ideology of that particular political party.
Do you want to evaluate the veracity of your analysis against, for example, a party like Chama cha Mapinduzi in Tanzania?
Oh, okay.
Was Mwalimu Julius Nyerere there when CCM was having a change of leadership? I don't think he played a big role when Al-Hassan Mwinyi came into place.
Thank you.
So I don't know if we should insist on the argument that the founding fathers must play a role in
No, the reason
the political
why
parties.
Chama cha Mapinduzi has been in leadership of Tanzania now coming for 50 years. They have built culture in Chama cha Mapinduzi that it doesn't matter who is there. The culture is clear, the ideology is clear.
That is the point I'm trying to make you appreciate.
Now,
that you inviting for our fathers to be the ones to resolve everything is you saying that we cannot have parties like Chama cha Mapinduzi, whereby even without Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, El-Hassan Mwinyi can continue, Mwinyi Mpaka can Mkapa can continue.
Now, the matter is simple. What I'm trying to demonstrate. If we ask you that, what do you define FDC? A normal citizen. When you talk about FDC, what comes to their mind of the normal citizen? When you talk about, what comes to the mind of normal citizens? When you talk about ANT, what comes to the mind of citizens out there? Now, that's the culture that we are known. For example, NRM is known for democracy, is known for patriotism, is known for social economic transformation. That's what's known for. What's known for ANT? Core-based leadership, I don't know, value-based leadership. What's known for NUP? The people who know them as violent people. What's known for these political parties? That's the whole point. That when you talk about ANC in South Africa, what's known for them? When you talk about the Labour Party in UK, what's known? Communist Party, we know what it stands for, regardless of the leader who comes in. When you talk about the Democrats in America, or the Republicans, we know what they stand for. We don't need to be explained for that. And whoever associates with them, associate with those values. That's why we're going to have leaders every single day moving from one political to another party, one party to another party. It's because of the values that these parties instill in its members. What are they known for? Now, because of that vacuum of what parties are known for, it creates all this kind of wrangles and dispersion and whatever thing we are saying today is because of what these parties should be known for. They are not known for things that every citizen should associate with. If we just ask you now, what do you know FDC for?
FDC is a social democratic party.
That's it. Everyone can, even PPP can say that. So the whole point I'm trying to bring out, Ndugu, is that the political parties that we have in this country, even my political party inclusive, there must be a deliberate move to ensure that the issue of culture of the party, the tradition, the beliefs, the norms are at the forefront of how it manages things. That's why you find that it's very difficult. Let's use the Chama cha Mapinduzi in here. You cannot be the Speaker of Parliament in Tanzania when you're not a grounded person for over 40 years in that political party. No one. You can never give me an example. No one. It's not like Uganda today. You'll find someone was FDC the other day. The other day is the Speaker of Parliament in NRM government. It just never happens in those political parties. In Labour Party, the moment they take over leadership, they change everything to be Labour Party ideology, and that's what they are known for. When you go to South Africa, ANC, their values are known for that. Until they see you worth that, they cannot give you a position. You cannot be now. Imagine a political party, its national leadership committee is a spokesperson is having a meeting that doesn't agree with the fellow leaders at national level, and you're the people making decisions for the political party, and you don't agree on a matter that just election of a party within, and you end up thinking about taking away government, and you cannot just agree on a party within an election. Imagine a spokesperson of a political party calling for a national executive committee consultation meeting without the party leadership of the secretary general and the party president. And he said, I'm entitled to that. Why does that happen in political parties in
Okay,
this world?
just before I move to Kata, my last question to you is that, yes, you've given us your thoughts about FDC. Then what do you think about the Honorable Kagabo and his statements regarding the MK movement, but also the ANT leader who crossed
Thank
to
you.
NUP?
I will sum that in few statements. One, that speaks to the culture, as I said. Do we belong to these parties because we believe in them, or belong them because these are opportunities? That the party is there, there's an opportunity through it, you will go where you want. Like today, yesterday when Osamuji was saying that he stayed in FDC, but in Chira, people are voting the umbrella regardless of who is there. They don't want to know who is there, but they are voting just the what? So it takes a lot of values for someone to stick to what they believe in. Now, the movement of Honorable Kagabo, the movement of Honorable Muira, and any other people are crossing here and there, it's not a surprise. President Museveni was once in DP as a youth leader before crossing to very many other political parties to where he is today. In search of ideology by that time. Today, very few political parties discuss ideology. I have very high respect for UPC, regardless of what they go through. It's one of the parties that is based on ideology, that its members, however much they will disagree on something, the ideology is clear. From north to east, they are clear. Now, we find a member of parliament crossing from here to there. It speaks to the individuality, the character of us leaders today.
Okay.
What do we stand for? And that's all. And when we answer what do we stand for, maybe this will stop. But until we answer that, we shall always cross, and that's why you will see all other political parties are there. And lastly, as I conclude, political parties are formed for two reasons: to mobilize and to take over leadership.
And to retain it.
And to retain it.
Okay. Let me move to Kata. Kata has been quiet. Kata, I mean, hearing the two gentlemen here, you get a feel that, you know, we exist in a very shaky political discourse, and, you know, political parties are having internal weaknesses that at times ends up emerging even on the national scene. But what are your own thoughts about whatever is happening in the opposition?
Well, I would first of all want to commend Comrade Alan and Comrade Nimrod for their submissions. Those have been really wonderful. He has given us an insight of how the historical background of the political parties came about, and also he just explained opposition in his own opinion and generally how it looks like actually. I will kind of differ from what he has talked about, sticking to the historical background of how political Uganda has been in. It has been very unstable, characterized with instabilities and a lot of tyrant political leaders. Unlike today, now we have leaders who are more civilized and who actually listen more and aspire to do better. So looking at the opposition politics and how it is emerging, I want to believe that it has gained momentum over the years, unlike how it has been before. Because right now we have so many characteristics and factors that have led to it to actually opposition politics to emerge and sound even more than the government itself. Because young people now like us, we are here discussing about politics, and it has not happened probably. However, Comrade Nimrod was talking more about the negatives of opposition politics. But when you look into the picture, opposition has actually done the best of it to criticize the government and try to pull people to their side. Opposition politics over time, right now as we speak, has gained popularity in young people, and they prefer to be part of the opposition than the government. However, he posed a question and said, what are political parties or opposition known for? In my head, I was just thinking like a citizen, not a politician, probably. And all I could remember when he mentioned FDC, I could just think about Besige. Because that is true. Actually, leaders of opposition leaders are the ones who have taken on the opposition itself. That a party is known for an individual, not for its ideas. So generally, you realize that opposition is still lacking here and there, and the fact that it is not established on ideology and they're not teaching it to young people, they are losing momentum and they cannot be as good as the government is. Most of the times we want to say that the government has money and these people are going there because government is giving them money. But
Government or the NRM?
The
Let
NRM.
us distinguish this.
No, but it's the government.
It is the government.
That's
No.
clear.
Those two are different.
You see, the
The-
party forms a government.
The NRM party is not the government itself. There is something called Government of Uganda.
I think it's
There
the
is
regime
something
in power.
called the NRM political party. Yes, the NRM goes and contests and wins an election and then
forms the government.
But you see, ideally, in a modern democracy, the two should be distinguished.
Of course,
That's
democracy is a hoax.
Because I want to ask you something.
Yes.
The government of Uganda, for example, has tools of state,
Yes.
like maybe the central bank, Uganda police, UPDF.
Yes.
So when a party wins elections, do they change all those tools of
They
state?
have the chance to do that. Now, let me just be clear.
I mean, like, if FDC came into power, will they come with their own army? No.
What I mean is,
So
there was a time when Obote was there and the constitution was not there. And that was this government, and that's what it chose.
That's why I'm saying that because of our political history, we don't know any better. We haven't seen any better because of our history that has been filled with, political instability and, bad leadership and etc. We haven't seen better, and perhaps we haven't imagined better. But
we have better now.
yeah, okay, we have what is good, but we can even be better.
Aspiring for the better.
Yeah, but anyway, Kata, yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, that is right. Government is different from the NRM. However, the NRM is the ruling party, so we usually
They're in charge of government.
Associated
yes,
with, yeah.
we associate it with the government. But unlike the NRM, which has gained momentum, I want to pose a question to you, Comrade Nimrod. Do you
Yes.
think if His Excellency, the President of Uganda, left and is no longer part of the NRM would be as outstanding as it is now?
To be extremely very honest with you, if by natural disaster today we lost our chairperson of the National Resistance Movement,
God forbid.
God forbid, the NRM cannot be the same NRM.
And
the honest
that
way
just
of-
takes me back to what he said,
Yeah.
that political parties in the country are lacking ideology because we are standing on a leader. We are looking at one person to lead the party, the political party. And nothing can ever be the same when this person leaves that political party. That is something he mentioned when he talked about Besigye not being actively participating in the FDC now and how it has not been the same from then. It will happen even in the NRM. It will happen even in NUP because we are looking at a person who is holding the umbrella of the political party. So basically, that is my opinion about opposition and how it is emerging.
Yeah, so you agree with Nimrod that political parties are built around individuals and
Yes.
not around...
Which we are working on in
ideologies.
NRM. We are working on
Or
it.
NRM.
Yeah.
Okay,
30 years.
okay.
Can even be 50.
I want to bring in Kelvin. Kelvin, and for obvious reasons, because your political party, one of your members just crossed to another opposition political party. First of all, what do you make of that? And how did you, receive that news?
When you run an institution, you should always be ready for uncertainties. People are usually different and they have their own interests. So if you believe that you have given yourself a chance to affiliate yourself with a political party and you feel you have done enough and you no longer feel you want to be part of it, you're usually free to leave because that is your rights. So I appreciate the work. He has been a very great instrument to the party. He did great work. I appreciate him for that. And I just wish him the best in his new political home. Just to enter into the topic,
Yeah, but just before you move on the issue of ANT, is that if you had the comments that the Honorable Chagulanyi put across, he was like, thank you for seeing the light. Like he was trying to tell Paul Muiro that thank you for seeing the light. Does it mean that, does that statement cast doubt on ANT? Because what light wasn't he seeing while he was in ANT? I don't know, did that statement
And
trigger
their symbol is light,
thoughts?
so
Yeah.
I don't know
Did-
if I'm
did-
saying that bulb.
No, we are never moved or shaken by statements made in public. We know where we are going, and we are determined, and we are focused. So whatever
Where are you
statement
going?
someone makes in public, we want to transform the political culture of this country. That is what we are focusing on. And that's why, just to dig into the topic, there's usually a common narrative that history repeats itself, but it's only the faces that
Change.
that change. But when you look at the historical notion of political parties in this country, right from Ignatius Musazi, how did he come about? Now, from my little knowledge that I got from consultation, it was more like a social movement that was meant to favor actually the farmers.
The Bataka Party, the
yes,
Bataka movement.
yes, where they will have the competitive advantage over the other foreign. So that is a social movement. But in the course, you need that political power in order to enforce. So he was likely advised that, you know what, if you could form a party, that will help to give you a leverage to advocate, especially for the farmers. Now, of course, he attract the farmers, which is equivalent to social movement. And then we see the same thing being carried on in the fight for independence. It started as a social movement. Now, and even after independence, there was the coup that happened where there was no multi-party kind of whatever it happened, shifting in power. And then we see now multi-party comes in. But when you see the coming of Museveni, I'll categorize it in the sector of social movement. And when you see now other political parties emerging, especially when the multi-party system was brought, they first start as a social movement, and then they advance.
I'll ask you a question.
Now,
what is ANT's biggest disagreement with
Now,
the NRM?
let me just explain that. Now, what happens is social movement is a cause for a short term. Now, the moment you see that you already have followers behind you, you might have that false imagination that now you can take power because you have seen the mass behind you. Now, that deceiving of
No, but numbers don't lie.
numbers.
Numbers
that-
have numbers.
Let's be realistic. We have seen what happened in the previous elections. Now that unpreparation makes you think that if I form a political party, because I already have the number, it will help me capture power. Now you're implementing something that you did not plan because
Kelvin,
it took you by surprise.
Kelvin.
And that is why we at ANT were like, no, we're not going to go by the historical notion. We are going to start on a contemporary base.
Okay, just Kelvin, just please allow me, because there's something I want us to interrogate, is that the party that you belong to, your founding, the principal of your party was a former member of the FDC, where he served as president of the party.
Who is that? You're calling the principal?
General Mugisha Muntu
Just a point of correction.
Okay.
Our current national coordinator
is Alice
is
Alaso.
Honorable Alice
Honorable
Alaso. General is just a member
A member.
of the party.
Okay, but a founding
Yes.
member.
Yeah, he was one of the founding members.
members.
But
Okay.
right now, he's a member. He's like me. He's like any other person, but he doesn't hold a
Any-
position
So
in the
you're
what?
better than him because you was a deputy coordinator.
Yeah, I could consider that true.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough. So, what is ANT's biggest departure from FDC? Or at what point did the founding fathers, who most of them were part of the FDC. At what point did they depart and say, FDC is taking this direction and we disagree with it?
Well, I'll be very honest. I won't speak a lot because ANT is my first political party. I've never been to any other party. But from what I have been hearing.
But I mean, you cannot belong to a political party, then you don't have interest in how it was formed, where the founding fathers
no,
came from.
What I
why
mean,
did they come?
what I mean, it's just a point of
any serious member of a
because
party should.
you know, I like speaking on facts.
So,
And to me, facts involve experience.
No.
You get it?
No.
So
You don't need
so
to have
when I say from what I
for you to
from
have
my
facts about it.
what I mean from my consultation on how ANT emerged was differences in ideology, where there were two camps. The first camp focused on defiance. The other camp believed that, you know what, we have to focus on grassroots structures. So now the two could not be able to work together. But because the guys of grassroots structures considered that, you know, we need to take a more civilized approach, they decided to go out and moved around the country to do consultation. That if the citizens accept their idea. So when they did the consultation, of course, it was accepted, and that made them now to form the political party, which is Alliance for National Transformation.
Then my other question is, what disagreement does ANT have with the NRM? Not disagreement, but what is your point of departure from the approach of the NRM vis-a-vis that of the ANT? What is different about the two political parties?
We are a value-based political party.
And the NRM,
on principle. NRM was just a social movement. Then all of a sudden they figured out they could capture power. They got power, and now I am sure they're just gambling. That's why you see, they're just gambling leadership actually.
Sure.
So I would say that.
you see, you cannot gamble for 37 years. It can't just happen. You can't gamble for 37 years.
You see, let's
allow him to justify why he thinks that NRM is gambling.
You see, when you look at political parties in Uganda, apart from some few, like how they have mentioned, they actually have what they call cult political leaders. Now, a cult political leader is someone who is not easy to deal with because he plays by the emotions of the people. He knows what you want, he knows what you want, he knows what you want, and he knows what you want. So at the end of the day, he finds out where your weaknesses are, he takes advantage of it, and to serve him. So, and that is the kind of culture we want to break. We don't want to build a party that is going to operate around an individual. We're focusing on strengthening institutions.
Okay.
And that is what ANT is standing for.
Okay,
But otherwise, me, when I see what is in NRM, that is a cult politician.
See, that's the freedom of expression.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm being realistic because if you go deep and define, because people have that narrative, cult is only in religion.
No. I get your point, but just to interject him shortly, it is wrong because NRM, its constitution spells the organs of the party. You have the SEC, that's the Central Executive Committee of the party, top management, high command. Then we have the NEC, then we have the DEC, then we have the sub-county until the village level. So all these organs support each other. Now you're defining such a political party that is a cult based on the chairperson of the party. It's wrong. The chairperson thing office has the chairperson, the first vice chairperson, the second vice chairperson. All these are leaders. How can you define it as a cult of leaders?
Let me be realistic with you. The moment someone dictates,
how?
The moment someone dictates on how things are supposed to be done,
which it doesn't.
Are you sure?
I have not seen it.
Are you sure?
There's nothing that goes through the party that does not
By
be
the way-
discussed at the SEC
by the
level.
way,
It doesn't happen.
Nimrod, I want to ask you a question now that this has come up. Is that isn't the office of the national chairman doing work that should be done by the secretariat?
That's now speaking like any other citizen out there who has no information.
Yes, I mean, I'm here to ask because they.
Yeah. Now, to our great viewers, the office of the national chairperson is mandated within our constitution. It is made to support the chairperson in carrying on the activities as a party chairperson, regardless of who becomes the party chairperson. That office
And the
will be in
secretariat?
operation.
The
The national secretariat, it has a lot of work that is beyond. If I tell you the beehive of activities that goes on every single day at the national secretariat, you will not believe it. I can just tell you what's happening. Right now, the parties, as the office of the national chairperson, busy with Tova Kumain. We are not doing that as a national party secretariat. We are busy visiting our structures in every part of this country, evaluating our manifesto implementation for the last 2 years. They depart a lot, but that's a fact.
Fair enough. There are, different groups but working to achieve the same thing.
Same mission.
All right. Kelvin, just wrap up and I'll bring in Alan. Were you done?
Oh yeah.
All right, sure. Alan, the question of institutions that I think Calvin did end with is that, as a budding lawyer, is that you believe in rule of law,
Yes.
I assume. And rule of law is, anchored on strong institutions. That, for us to have a credible, for example, a credible governance process, we must have strong institutions that can offer checks and balances. We must have a strong judiciary, strong legislature and etc. So when you look at institutions like political parties, because these are public institutions, all right, you look at the way they are run. Some are run like briefcase companies that belong to certain individuals, all right? But then also you look at the mode of financing of these political parties. Do you think that if we are to strengthen, because when we have strong political parties, then we can have a chance at a stronger democracy. Because if you have a strong FDC, then they can go strong at the NRM and say, no, but on this matter, we disagree with you and ABCD. So the internal democracies of these political parties, how best do you think we can, is there a need for legal reforms? For example, the financing of political parties? Or should, I don't know, would you propose some reforms to strengthen political parties?
Well, like you said, from what you are stating, that political parties in themselves are public institutions, and in their registration, I think it is under the Political Parties and Non-Government Organizations Act or something, they are registered as public institutions, to the extent that at some point you find that a taxpayer's money will be used in the running of any of the political parties.
Not at some point. Every
It is what happens.
Yeah, but I intend to say that not all the time that whatever the political party uses comes from direct from the national treasury. So the political party itself might have arrangements to raise money. But to say that in consideration of the activities of other public institutions, we'll have a political party considered. And the reason as to why even the ruling government will have it in mind and consider other political parties that seem to be rivals in the art of politics, that they should be considered in funding. And they are not, trampled upon the moment such a resolution is brought up to fund the political parties, because they see the need for them as a ruling government to be checked. And on the other hand, they see a need that the people of Uganda need to grow politically. And to grow politically, you have to allow people to associate their own ideologies or their perception of what politics should be with any political party that raises any values that they feel they should stand for. So when you give an opportunity to such an institution to start, and you also give some financial support, you are supporting the citizenry to grow politically and to think better for their country. So one, it is very good that the country considers political parties as good institutions that should exist. In fact, to the extent that Comrade Nimrod had asked whether we are ready for multi-party politics, I think we are very ready, because unless we accept multi-party politics, we cannot have political growth in true ideology in the 21st century. Because what remains is that there will be monopoly of what should transpire in the political environment. But right now, you will hear what the NRM people will say, that let us take this trajectory in the running of the politics of this country. But then there will be opposition, let's say in parliament, that they will bring an option, whether it is on budget, whether it is on any policy, they will bring an option and say that in as far as our standing is concerned, and in as far as how we evaluate the ruling government under that is governed by members from this political party, we think that to some extent they are trying to favor themselves, or it will not favor the citizens. Their line of thinking might be good for the line of the ideology that they stand for, but as we go as the minority in the politics, we think that there are some people who are not standing with it. So the institutions of political parties as institutions, they give ground for growth in politics, ideology, and opportunities to think bigger than what is offered by one person.
Sure, fair enough.
I think they should be supported. The reforms you are asking about, how are these governed? There is a suggestion that what money is given to these political parties should now be audited. Because now, when Semu Uganda was talking about the money, then I think Nandara, I don't know what I read, whether it was true of him that it's what he reads the statement, because from the start he never wanted to say anything that that they didn't know anything about the money or anything. But there's a statement that caught my attention, that earlier along, money that was coming there was money that would come into the political party, and there'd be no questions of accountability. And it has just come up that they need accountability. So these people are saying that there's someone who intends to bring up factions and to divide the party. So I think the biggest of the reforms is that whereas these political parties should not be controlled by the government, but they should be included in the regulation of other organizations in the government. Whereas they are public institutions, they should consider if they are to file returns in as far as their monies are concerned, to file returns in as far as the activities they conduct are concerned, so that since the institutions of government support them, to have them groom the populace into a kind of well-informed political atmosphere, or people to grow politically and think straight for the future of their country. They should be in the know of how progressive they have been. The bad side of this is that you find that in the I said that the kind of opposition that we have, or the kind of opposition you have in any government, is dependent on the political, social, and economic environment created by the ruling government.
So has the government created an enabling environment for these parties to grow and to, grow their strength and improve their ability?
It is well known. I'll have to say something about that. That the NRM, whereas there is a notion of freedom of expression, there is a notion of freedom of association. I contextualize it in my own perception. The political parties have not been given the kind of environment that is on paper. What we have on paper is that you can form a political party, you can run their offices, you can do activities up to the grassroots, but then you find stringent measures against them again. For example, the Public Order Management Act itself, it's a clawback. In constitutional law, there's what they call clawback clauses. You give people freedom and then withdraw it at the same time. You say you can go and express yourself anywhere, you can gather, you can associate, but then you tell them that before you gather, please, you have to write the IGP and have their permission. And you see, all that entire bureaucracy, does it give a good environment? On the other hand, the skirmishes we have seen in any of the elections that we've conducted in Uganda, how leaders of opposition are arrested, how members of opposition parties are arrested. The members of NUP, we have complaints from members of NUP.
Can I just give him some information?
Okay. I'll let him finish first.
The members that have been rotting in prisons, we've seen Kizza Besigye having been one of the men in the world overly arrested. Even any person who comes up to say that I intend to oppose this government, the likes of Tumukunde, they will be arrested out of nowhere. They will be sidelined. And then you say that we are operating on the same platform with the ruling government to say in line of the environment I was talking about. So whereas the environment we're working in is not the same as what I explained earlier in the history, the trajectory that we have right now is that the political parties, we have a pseudo kind of environment for political parties, but deep down in the practicability of the application of their mandate, what they are mandated under the constitution, under the act that introduces those very political parties, you find that people gather somewhere, and in a meeting out of nowhere, the police will come in, tear gas them, they run away, some are arrested, some disappear. So I feel...
But FDC had a meeting yesterday successfully.
FDC had a meeting yesterday successfully, but was it organized by the national sector of the FDC? Was it a threat to the government? Let me tell you, if the FDC sitting that we had, that the FDC had recently
on
Monday, if it was meant to front any idea of getting power, that would have been trampled upon.
Just love to give comrades some.
This sitting
it was dividing them internally.
This sitting itself was a dividing sitting. So the government is not bothered about such a thing because they're not losing anything.
They're not losing anything. They're in fact gaining.
They're actually gaining.
Just some information.
So Nimrod, as you get the information given, is that what do you have to say to those who think that there is an invisible hand of the NRM?
Thank you. Just some information.
In all this confusion of FDC?
All right. One, in the history of this country since 1962, when got independence, it's the only leadership, that's the NRM leadership, that in the last 18 years has allowed every individual citizen of this country to register a political party and to operate it.
That's not true.
It's the only government.
That's not true. 1962 up to 64, 66.
Yes.
There was UPC and DP, and both parties were operating. In the subsequent governments, even the governments that followed, the parties were existing, and I don't remember when they were nullifying the existence of the political parties.
I want to clear what I'm communicating is that in the past 18 years, since we agreed to bring back the multi-party dispensation in this country, there were before the NRM government, there was no smooth period like we have had today. That in the last, what I'm saying is, in the last 18 years, since 2005, it is okay. In the past, you can realize that there was always an issue. Every time, after 9 years of kind of leadership, change of leadership, everyone comes in, brings in other issues. You realize that because of change of governments, yeah, it affected the functionality of political parties before 86. What I'm saying, that what Comrade was saying, that what we give on paper is not what's practical. To me, that's a surprise. Why? What is mandated by political party? What's their work? Constitutionally. Two, what are they doing? Let me give you an example. You're saying that because yesterday the government left FDC because it was a meeting that divided the party. This same FDC, even yes, Semuju himself confessed that the team has been moving all over the country, led by the Secretary General and the party president, meeting their structures and consultative meetings. No one of them have been disrupted in this country. In the past 1 year, they have been moving freely. Was that not a threat to the government that you're meeting the structures and organizing them? But they left them.
Is it the case from 2005 up to now?
What I'm saying, it is happening.
You're saying that there has never been smooth
operation of
political parties like it is today.
Yes.
Are you trying to say that from 2005 up to today, we've had smooth running of opposition
all of them have been participating in election freely. You choose to participate or not.
Does participating in elections mean smooth running of political parties?
Now, the issue of where the government they have been violating the Public Order Management Act themselves.
The very Public Order Management Act that came in force was a political act. To say the provisions of the act,
the opposition was in parliament.
Let me tell you, the opposition were in parliament, but are they the majority who votes on any bill?
You see, that's an analogy. Also, I want us to stop saying that. You see, some bills are passed just because NRM has the majority. Before these bills, I mean, you are lawyers more than me. I'm not a law student. These things I read public information. Before all these bills are passed, there's consultative meetings. How have they got? They can even raise the population to reject something, and it can happen. If we're in parliament and you realize that parliament is not standing with you, in what you think it is the better alternative for the country. There's an option of going and engage the masses. And they reject such bills if they're taking up in their own country. So I don't want that to be an excuse that such bills, because they are passed and they are not favoring them, and because the NRM has a majority. That's an analogy. There are other options you can work within the system. Thirdly, you're answering your question on is there an invisible hand on what's happening?
There are accusations that the NRM is having an invisible hand.
You see, as a council, we cannot depend on accusations. It must be there or it is not there. For the record, the president of this country, who is the party chairperson, has made it clear that NRM is a movement. And being a movement, with the design of a bus, for us we shall pick whoever is willing, with one mission of a social transformation of this country. Whoever is ready to be part of the movement is welcome. And that's why every single day we shall welcome whoever is willing to what? To join the movement and move in the bus and transform this country. The issue of how parties are disorganized and how you think there's an invisible hand, that is a conversation of a border stage. It's just a mindset of
it was the party spokesperson of the FDC who said that they don't know where this money that the Honorable Power and the Honorable Nandala Mafami are getting it from, but they suspect it is coming from the NRM.
And imagine a full party spokesperson who sits at the national high command of the party has no information where the money, and is just coming out to accuse, saying we think it is coming from the government.
If you recall, he in his, we can speak in hindsight. It is okay, all right? But he thinks that this is a move to sell the FDC to the NRM.
You see, NRM has been clear. Yes, NRM has been clear. If there's a party we have a cooperation, it is public. That we have a cooperation with DP, it is public and they signed it publicly. And even the information under the cooperation is public. UPC, it is public. Any other political party that we want to work with, we make it public. We don't say they're using invisible hands. We don't have an invisible hand in NRM. What we have is we have a mission to achieve, and when we see that you are okay to work with us, it is public. We shall welcome you, we welcome the Honorable Mapenduzi publicly, and we welcome you and work with you. We don't have an invisible, I don't think, in my understanding, I'm not speaking on behalf of the party, as a party, Honorable Dombo, who speaks on behalf of the party, but I'm sure he will say the same words. There's nothing like an invisible hand. What they're having is their own hawks, and that's communicates to their nature. They don't trust each other. They accuse each other, and such a team, really, we cannot surrender this country to them.
There's something I wanted to say about what we see transpiring in the very inside, how the democracies inside the political parties that at some point bring divisions. We've had governments change in Uganda as a result of disagreements of individuals, not in political parties, but in the very arrangements they have to take over government. So what we have today is that someone will disagree on ideological basis. Then the leaders of the political party will come out to demonize such a person. Because the kinds of political parties we have in Uganda, like most of us have agreed, they are premised on individual sentiments. You find that a certain political party leader or a certain person in the political party who was part of the founding members of the party had an issue with another person in another government, and they feel this should be transferred into the new political party. And the moment someone tries to deviate from their cause and anger of changing government based on what they thought right from the start, they feel there's need now to raise up ideology, there's need now to create some sensitization among the population on values, a sensitization on the ideology of the party. We should do away with this kind of manner of conducting politics. So you find that every time you are to achieve something as a political party, you need to go on the streets. But then it also speaks back to the kind of environment created by the ruling government. It seems to me, and I think it is so, that these political parties are still premised on what the leaders think. The moment someone deviates, those who follow the disciples of the founder, who is the leader most of the times. Now, I'll give you a clear example of the NUP. Someone said, I think this was Mubarak Munyagwa, that if an election was conducted at NUP offices with between Chagulanyi and Muhoozi, that Muhoozi would win and Chagulanyi would get 4. In my opinion, Chagulanyi would win. Why? Because most of the people at the NUP offices are close affiliates of Chagulanyi. But if another person came up as the president of the party or as the leader of NUP and stood at those offices with someone from the NRM person would win. Because the political party appears to me to be premised on the individual, and that is Kyagulanyi. And to that extent, most of the political parties right now are still balancing in that. And to tell you the truth, these political parties that come up as a result of a wave, that there's a wave of popularity of someone, and the moment such a person drops out, the party starts hanging in balance. That is why we have now FDC hanging in balance, because someone who Bitov was driving it forward, because the article I read about the FDC was that, and it dates way back 7 years, where people were speculating that if Besigye leaves the leadership of the FDC will be no more. And when the very time he left, and I think was it Mugisha Muntu who took over, that is when the issues started to rise. And then we had a certain group that left the FDC. And now again, we have another group leaving the FDC. It speaks to the premises on which a political party is founded. Whereas we cannot divorce disagreements between individuals from the political party, from formation of political parties, it is true that the formation of political parties should be premised on ideology and not just individuals.
All right. We are due for a short commercial break. Kelvin, I will begin with you, and of course, Tyra. Sorry, Kata rather, after this short commercial break. See you after.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Kata, before I come to you, Kelvin, you had comments as the two gentlemen were, having a discourse. I saw you had something to say, but as you say that, General Mugisha Muntu, upon his departure from FDC, said that time will tell, and time will unpack so many things. Is his prediction coming to pass about the FDC?
Well, thank you. Just to comment on the argument before, I think, you see, there is one thing to speak to defend, and then there's another thing to speak on principle. To be very honest, the regime in power has not created, a good atmosphere, especially for opposition political parties. And I mean, it's on record, especially when you look at the previous by-elections. People have been people have been kidnapped, people have been beaten, some have been killed. I mean, a lot of horrible things have been happening, and you guys have to take the blame for that. But however, there's a narrative where your party chairperson said that by 2021 there shouldn't be any opposition political party in it. And I'm sure he's very surprised that now we're in 2023 and
There is no opposition.
opposition still exists.
There's no meaningful opposition.
But what I can say is, I think it's very imperative, especially for opposition party, to operate on discipline and principle, because right now the ecosystem, especially economically, it's very alarming and tempting. So if you're not a person of discipline, of course, with the challenges, which is happening, the impoverishment of citizens of this country, you can easily be lured, because of money and all those kind of things. That's why you see such allegations are coming on. So we as citizens, especially who subscribe to opposition, and by principle, we know our vision and where we're headed to. We need to be persistent. We need to resist all kind of temptations that might come, and we should focus on what you're working towards, even if it's going to take you 20 or 30 years to come, as long as you know that you have continued to nurture the next generation to continue on the vision until when it yields. So that's why in ANT we're trying to create that incubation. We believe with time, just like how you posed the question, that it's a matter of time, and we believe in that principle. It's a matter of time that one day ANT will be in power and it's going to transform the political culture of this country, and that will be the beginning of civilization, especially in politics in this country.
Is ANT happy with what is happening in the FDC? Are you clapping your hands and saying that? I mean,
time is dead.
I mean, I cannot comment on matters of the other political parties. I can only speak on what happens in our party. But however, sorry?
Are you feeling good that it is happening just at an individual?
Okay, at an individual level,
no, just like
I wouldn't.
Just like you had comments about the
I wouldn't.
yeah.
At an individual level, I wouldn't expect individuals of common goal to start dividing themselves, because what brought you together is a cause. But in the process, you must be able to dialogue, especially when issues arise. So splitting, accusing, cursing, I don't think it's a right. I don't think it's a right element of leadership.
All right, thank you. Kata, just because we are discussing opposition generally, is that the Honorable Kagabo, who is an MP for some constituency within Bukoto, yeah, Central, I think.
Bukoto East.
East, yeah.
Yes.
Was seen posing in a picture with General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is the leader of the MK movement, and the Honorable Member of Parliament from Njeru municipality as well. A few days after that, was seen, taking a picture with General Muhoozi. So the question is, I don't know, NUP politicians associating with the MK movement. What do you make of that?
Because MK is a movement, I don't think it has a problem. A person belonging to another party affiliating themselves with a movement.
Sure.
Because we remember how NUP started as a movement, or as
Okay.
he called it
Pressure
something,
group.
a pressure group. People power, our power.
Okay, is the MK movement aligned to the NRM?
I cannot answer that question, but what I know or what I think is that definitely MK movement is having a connection with the NRM.
Yes, so it means that the Honorable Member of Parliament of NUP is indirectly associating with the NRM.
It could not necessarily mean that one, but maybe in the long run, the Honorable Member of Parliament will be affiliating with the NRM if they come out publicly and say that, yes, I am now officially NRM. But posing in a picture with MK and the movement, I don't think it affiliates you to a political party. Also, because I have seen NRM members, I cannot probably mention names, but saying they are also people power, not no.
Sure.
You have seen such things happen, especially during the election time.
My member of parliament,
Yes.
Honorable Mbwatekam,
Mm.
he used to say that he supports people power.
People power, and not no. So you will
Sure.
find such things existing in the country, and until people power becomes a political party, if I affiliate myself to it, or if I say that people power, our power, does not make me no.
Okay.
Yes, and if you pose in a picture with MK movement, you are not NRM, but maybe you're moving into something that in the future will be able to tell whether you're belonging to NRM or you're still sticking to the NOP.
The MK movement is a cult. Because the
Another
word
accusation there.
the word MK. What is MK?
Mahoz Kainerugaba.
And what is a movement?
The system of people is a team of individuals
Coming
that come
towards the
together
person.
towards the common
No,
agenda.
what is the agenda of MK?
The agenda of MK is continue to sustain the transformation of this country.
Continue to sustain. But, well, we've had movements, we've had
No,
revolutions.
I think Alan's question is that why didn't Museveni call the struggle then Museveni Kaguta movement? Why is this one being individualistic around someone's name, MK?
You see,
We have had Uganda People's Congress,
you see, we have to
Democratic
be very
Party.
sincere with ourselves.
Why? His question is, why is this one named after an individual?
An individual.
thank you. You see,
Hence the cult that is
in
called
politics, there is no system that we should always use one method to drive an agenda. World over, in politics calls for creativity. It's in terms of slogans, in terms of ideas, in terms of agendas. Now, if the creativity of a certain team thinks that because of he's a general, and it's okay to front the name as a uniting factor, what's the problem with that?
Okay, but Alan,
Maybe that's the people who say they didn't see that.
What is the legal implication of someone having an army, MK army? I don't know what the law does. The law reserve certain words? I don't know. Can anyone create an army?
What is the word army?
Whereas
That's why
Let the legal person tell us.
Does the law reserve certain words?
She's also a lawyer here.
Whereas the word army may have several definitions, and that could be their way out. But in my opinion, in a way that the movement, as they call it, is starting, to me it's not a movement. I'm always a sincere person in what I look through. Because you cannot tell me that you're creating a movement. Recently they were saying that they are creating a consolidation of all the affiliated, I think, movements to the movement. The army, the what, they are bringing it together. To me, I say, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, his colleagues, have a right in any way to engage in the politics of Uganda. Whereas there are questions of whether he has to retire from the army or what, those become legal issues that have to be resolved in any perspective. He has an umbrella of being a legal advisor and has a right to go on any duties, any assignments. So if that is part of the assignments, then it is okay for them to do. But my question comes to whether you affiliate what we call a movement. You are in the NRM, you know what a movement means. I've read the history of the NRM. I appreciate what they stand, they use it to stand for.
So what are the issues?
What they have metamorphosed into?
What are the issues? What are the issues being raised by Male Mabirizi? Because I see he has taken the MK team to court on grounds of being a public nuisance.
Yeah, Male Mabirizi has sued several parties, including Muhoozi Kainerugaba himself, on allegations of being a public nuisance, organizing whatever illegal functions, and then issues relating to one being a military personnel and then again being in civilian politics, all those questions. And I agree with the person who says that the army is political. The army itself,
who said that?
The formation of an army, I will not cite the person, I don't intend to. The formation of armies are based on, even our army now, is premised on a political ideology. However, the consolidation of our army was to eliminate the politics from the army. It can be a political arrangement, but when you say let us eliminate the politics in what we are doing, but when you as a person, you're trying to bring back the politics into the army, it becomes the question.
Thomas Sankara said that a soldier with a gun without ideology is a bandit. There's no way you can diffuse ideology from a soldier with a gun. Now, you may call it politics, but
politics and having a political ideology is a different thing. Politics is practice. When a soldier starts practicing politics is a very dangerous venture. So I can tell you they have a right as even citizens of this country, serving the purpose of this country in the army, to think for this country. But when you start laying political strategies, it means you're starting to practice politics. What Mali
Remember,
Mabilis is doing will be a question of court, and
Remember,
they have to decide it in their own.
Do you think General Muhoozi should retire first before he can continue with having these public rallies?
Just
and
just as I come to that, he said something that I thought important, that the audience enlightens on it, that he understands what is a movement. He understands the history of NRM as a movement and what they have metamorphosed into. The issue of a movement is it is a movement from day one. Our leadership believes that a movement is an individual. We have an agenda, and whoever believes that this agenda serves the population for the better is welcome, regardless of personal differences, regardless of culture, regardless of skin color, regardless of tribe. However much that we believe that we are having a mission, we want to transform this country to where we want to sit, we are welcome. What Muhoozi is doing, I'm not speaking for that movement. I only speak because I am an NRM. I'm not speaking for the movement. But what I see, like anyone can see that, that they think that the revolution of NRM has done some achievements, has achieved something. In their opinion, they also believe that, one, they must protect, defend, and ensure continuity as a bit of the movement 10-point program and its mission. And in that pursuit for them to achieve, defend, and ensure continuity of that movement revolution ideas, they say, can we also bring people who think like we think together, and also ensure that we avoid any anarchy in this country, we enable smooth transition of power. That they have been transitioned to us, the generation who are ready to defend and ensure the continuity of the revolution. So, and that is a movement. That's the whole point. Now, the matter, they could have called it Abazukulu movement, they called it anyone, they could have called it Samba movement or anything. But they just chose to call it MK. They could have called it anything. There's nothing. To the word army, you have just said it. It has so many definitions.
But you
cannot, not restricted to owning guns.
You cannot divorce your opinion from reality.
No, that's a reality. I don't know what to term reality. It's not based on you.
Maybe to comment on principle, what
Muhoozi,
what Muhoozi is doing, it's not right.
I don't know which principle you're basing on.
What I mean is, the moment you're in army, I think you are not supposed to be in politics.
The UPDF Act, yes.
Yes, you're not supposed to be in politics. But I don't know, that's why you look, it clearly shows how weak the institutions of this country is. The moment you're in the army and you leverage on the resource of the army.
So what has it done?
To market yourself.
Politics.
Sorry? To market yourself. To market your interest, to become a leader of this country. On principle, you are wrong. And citizens and voters have to see that when such kind of a person is going against the law, gets into power, what kind of a country shall we have?
You see, the question I would ask my
now, a true country,
what has he done that you think it is political? Just tell me.
Let's be realistic.
No, just tell me. The viewers are watching.
You are in NRM,
yes.
Right? Yes. You have seen what has been happening.
I want you to enlighten the viewers.
No, what I'm saying.
What has he done that you think it is political and contradicts the UPDF Act?
No, there are a lot of things he did.
Tell me.
There are a lot of things that
you see. That's what our population is. He's doing this. He's doing a lot of things, but you can't name them.
No, let's be realistic. He has been holding so many activities.
Doing what?
Gatherings.
Doing what?
In what capacity?
Definitely. Even you can do a gathering in your own capacity.
Look.
No one will disturb you. Look. Does the constitution say Nimrod is not allowed to go to Mbala and organize a gathering?
Let me be realistic. If the gathering is based on security and he's been delegated, there it makes sense.
What has he done in that gathering? Has he declared in the gathering that I want to be the president?
You see, that's why I'm saying don't act to defend, but
he has no. Okay. The activities are simple. Birthday celebrations, sports galas.
When General Tumukunde went on radio as an active serving military officer and made political comments, what happened to him?
Exactly. What was he talking about?
When General Tinyefunza made political statements, what happened to him?
I guess you want to know why I answer.
Those are the questions that these gentlemen are asking.
Thank you so much. Now, the question I want all of us to answer here is, what were they talking about in those comments? What has Muhoozi publicly on these gatherings what he's talking about. When Mose goes to meet and say, I believe this country should invest more in sports and entertainment for the young people. Is that a bad statement? Is that cause anarchy in the country?
That's a political statement.
Why? I'm
That's
an
a
advocate
political
of
statement.
better. No.
You are a general, you are a commander.
But
in
you
the
think
army.
that investing
You
in
have
sports
no
is a good
role
thing?
to go and speak on behalf of Ministry of Sports and whatever.
No, advocacy. Everyone is
No,
okay to
he
do advocacy.
doesn't. He doesn't have that mandate.
Is he the only general in the army?
But have the other generals been stopped?
Because they're
What
following
did
the
they
law.
say?
I give examples.
Because they are following the law.
No, what were they talking about in those documents? They talk about taking over leadership. And that is now treason.
Do you follow Twitter?
I'm a very big follower of Twitter.
Do you follow Mose?
I follow Mose, I follow even Chinyafunza.
When he
I
says
follow
that,
Tumukunde.
when he says that the NRM is a reactionary party, isn't that a political statement?
No, he's as a citizen, he can say any statement he wishes.
No. You are an acting. You are an active.
Does that take away the
military
fact
officer
that he can make a comment
You
on
are
what he sees
guided
in the
by
country?
the UPDF Act.
I think it's a lack.
You
This
don't
clearly
just come
says the
and-
lack of common sense in
No, the
NRM.
whole point
He referred
is,
to the
the whole
NRM
point
as
is
a
a reactionary.
party.
That's true.
Was that a political statement, Nimrod?
Actually, called a cannibalistic something.
Yes.
But the whole point is, as much as a serving officer, all these statements are said, but the difference is that for him, he has an audience on Twitter that where he can say it and it is seen everywhere. But even in other officers down there, in their own areas, they speak the statements. The difference is this one is more public.
Are
and
they
this
doing
one-
it? Are they doing it in accordance with the law?
Now, in terms of according to the law, these are legal people to interpret for
Counsel,
me.
are these actions in accordance with the law?
All
Does the law
serving-
stop them? That's what I want to know.
If you are a military officer,
Mm.
the code of conduct
I know.
and under the UPDF Act, you are not supposed to mingle into civilian issues. Politics and the practice of politics is regarded as civilian. And when you see our history, like Comrade alluded to it, of tyranny, of political turmoil, all that, it was caused by the mere fact that the army was engaged in politics. Idi Amin would come from nowhere and feel that the president or the serving government is reactionary or is doing something not worthy of this country. He would take it on because he has tools to take over a government and take over a government. The reason as to why there is a need to tell military officers and to regulate them from overly engaging in politics. They have a right to think politically. They have a right to bear any political ideology. They have a right. They are citizens of this country and they are human beings. You cannot stop them.
That's my
But
point.
for avoidance of what we were in our history, it is not worthwhile to have a serving member of the military come out to make political statements. Why? Because he has a following. I respect General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Why? He's a general. He has led the army as the commander of the land forces. He has members of the military that support him. He has so many, he already has in his movement, he has people who love him. I respect him in that manner. What would you expect in making such a statement if it was made in the time of Obote, in the arrangement of the Amin's takeover? What would people think and what would be the next step?
We'd be headed for turmoil.
Yeah, we'd be headed for takeover of government.
But just hold up. Carter, aren't we only avoiding, aren't we speaking in tongues? Because our parliament has 10 members that represent the UPDF. Parliament is a temple of political dispensation. So if you have 10 UPDF officers in parliament and they're active members of parliament, then I don't know, us buying military officers from participating in politics, I'm seeing a gray area in between there.
It is not that the military officers or the UPDF is bad for participating into politics, but coming out actively and saying that you want to take on leadership of this country, that is what the law prohibits actually. And the UPDF being represented in parliament and having active members there, these are the members that are supposed to air out the views of the army. in parliament,
parliament.
for discussion. Now, what General Muhoozi could have done is to probably use these members who are in the parliament to dispense of his interests and whatever he wants to put across. That is the right procedure of the law. But him having a good following and coming out to speak this and that politically and also criticizing the NRM is something I also don't understand very well, because MK is affiliated to NRM, and then there is conflict in interest. Can you please enlighten us more on that one? Is it politics? Is it?
No, you see, even Nimrod, I criticize NRM. Their shortcomings like on corruption. I agree that as a party, we have failed to curb corruption. But it doesn't take out the fact that I believe in its other values. I believe that it's the best political party. The same way Muhoozi will wake up and say, I think this party is being reactionary on these issues. Yeah, so, I mean, even the NRM, the president himself came out and said, the NRM, you are doing wrong to go out there in by-election to give money and attend burials. But he's the chairperson of the party. But still, positive criticism. It's welcome. That's why he says, I think the party is being reactionary.
So are people in the MK project part of the NRM? Or these are different people?
You see, as I said, that's a movement. Now, you can belong to NRM, a party, and still belong to a movement, since it is not a political party. I can still not belong to NRM and belong to the movement. So a movement is a collection of every kind of individual who has the same mission.
So Kata, why this whole issue of MK came up is because we are discussing the opposition generally. And we are seeing NUP MPs openly proclaiming their association with the MK movement. So where does that leave opposition political parties? Do you think MK is growing into the opposition space? Is it?
Definitely, I actually said the word. It is a neutralizing agent. Comrade Nimrod mentioned about the fact that NRM cannot see any other god except NRM. So the president of this country, being a very wise man, he comes up with projects like the MK project. Maybe, I don't know if he's the one who came up with it anyway, but this is just to make sure that the opposition is left at stake. They do not know, they don't even understand what this movement is. They are quote unaware. They don't even understand what this movement is, what is it about. And on top of that, the movement has a lot of money, even more than the political parties are having.
Where do they get the money from? Is an interesting question.
Where we say where we shall.
Definitely. Anywhere we shall.
Maybe that's something to be. That's something that needs to be investigated.
No, no. Like any other person, you have the well wish.
But however,
says I'm putting a party for you to come and talk to people.
However, in a political space, usually there's what they call strategy. Maybe it could be one of the strategies that NRM is trying to use to confuse the masses.
Yes, to confuse the opposition especially.
Yeah, and confuse the opposition, and then with time they keep neutralizing and picking guys, because I mean they play by people's interest and they know your weaknesses. So if we are not disciplined enough to resist such kind of things, then of course they will swallow the opposition. So now, much as we are the small number, we need to stand firm and focused, and we keep on, preaching our message to the masses, so that the kidogo that they get in during elections, because people are really poor. These are some of the things that NRM is riding on.
True.
People are very
poor.
You meet someone,
very poor.
You give the person 1,000. It's like I don't know. Like it's like you are a savior.
True.
Yet, so the income gap between the rich and the poor, it's quite high. And who are these rich people? Most of the rich people are in the political space. That's why now you see people go into politics not to serve the country. They go there to get rich. And that is the kind of culture we're trying to change as ANT. So if we're not disciplined, this country will never progress to the kind of a country we want. So it is upon us, the young people, to live based on values, to be disciplined, to look at each other as equal, not division by tribe, not division by, because I mean, all You know, what affects me affects you. It doesn't matter whether
We are all poor.
Yes. So let's not just speak for the case of speaking. Let's speak on reality. You have a brother that right now, I don't know if your mother falls sick and they need an operation for her to get okay, and they're asking you for 100 million. Can you be able to afford to save your mother's life?
You have hospitals, but
But are the hospitals functioning? And those are the things we need to look at.
Kata, as we try to wrap this up, is that an ordinary professor at Makerere University earns maybe around 9 million or maybe 10. All right. A politician, a member of parliament earns, I don't know how much, 30 million per month. So just picking up from where Kelvin has stopped, is that we must make politics less profitable for us to attract credible leaders. For as long as politics is seen as a business opportunity, is seen as a jackpot, is seen as like a cash cow, we shall continue attracting the wrong people in public service. So how do you think we can be able to make politics less profitable and therefore attract people who are not motivated by the money, but by the service of this country?
That is another debate that is going to culminate from this conversation. But when you look at politics and making it less profitable, it also leaves a question that where are these people going to get money to give to the people who are following them? Because as a leader, you're supposed to have a mass that is following and believing in you. However, we have witnessed this in the NOP. NOP, I do not know if it has money or it has sustainable income that is sustaining the party and all. But when Bobby Wine in the concluded, where was he? Ginger? He was in Ginger and a lot of masses were following him. And these are people who were not mobilized by the money.
Are you sure?
Is someone who alleged they were given something?
It is
alleged, eh?
All those allegations. The same way they alleged.
Let me allow Council to...
But when, for example, if Museveni is coming somewhere, people will have to be given transport allowance, and that will be sure, and that is the reason why they will come.
Sure.
That is the reason.
It's an allegation.
It is not. It is actually true. This is why people will actually come to attend wherever. But for Bobby Wine, if he just moved around, masses will just start following him. So where does this leave us? It leaves us in us not giving money to people or lowering them by giving them material things or anything of the sort, but them believing in your ideology and following you as a person, not necessarily because you're the best. I do not believe in someone being the best because you cannot be. That is why even the president has advisors and all. But the fact that you have a vision that you sell into the people and the people buy it and then they follow you with that, that makes you a leader. And if the country is democratic enough to let you go through and become the leader, then I think that is the best thing to do.
All right.
Maybe just to add on.
Okay, our time is fast spent. Let us wrap up this conversation, then we move to the students' loan scheme. So as you make that comment, just give us your parting shots on this topic, then we can wrap it up.
Just to add on what she has said, I think it's really imperative, especially for party leaders, to look beyond, because when you attract masses, I don't know if the masses usually ask themselves, why am I following this crowd?
They do.
Sorry?
They do in the long run.
They do in the long run, right? But in the short run,
they don't.
They don't. It's fine. I'm following that mass because Chidega is my friend, and you understand. So it's important. We need to start questioning, all kind of activities that happen, movements. This one is the merge. What is the intention? How is it going to impact us in the long run, positive or negative? So those are the kind of critical questions that citizens have to ask before rallying behind someone. So as leaders, like we already have leaders who are founding founding members of political parties. What they should do, they should continue to nurture young people, to carry on with their ideology. Because being a leader doesn't mean you should look at yourself. The reason I said one of the whatevers is a cult is because it's not that he made himself a cult, but it's the mass that has made him the cult. And with time, you assume that you're actually a god. But in your wisdom, you should be able to use your mind to say, you know what, I can no longer serve. I believe there are so many people out there who are citizens of this country and who can be better leaders compared to me. So you should be able to step down and allow others to go and also exhibit their their talent, their experience to be able to transform this country. So it's a process where different actors keep coming and leaving. But at the end of the day, it's about what legacy have you left.
All right, Nimrod, your parting shots on opposition.
Thank you. My message is to the young people out there. When you're young, you have the energy, you're blessed, you're alive. Pay attention to what you see around. Pay attention to the opposition. It is clear that there's no vision there, there's no mission there. It is clear the agenda is about the selfish interests. You have seen it. Please, there's no pride in opposing a ruling government. Join the government and be part of the team that is going to transform this society to what we want it to be. Thank you.
All right, yes, Kata.
Conclusively, I want to quote someone who said that you have not succeeded until you have left a good successor. So this, where does this leave us? It leaves us into thinking about our country, into thinking about ourselves. Who can succeed President Museveni? Once we can answer that question, we can choose a party to belong with the vision and the better ideology that we believe in.
All right, yes, Alan.
Well, with regard to what is happening in the opposition, as a student of the Bible, is something that Paul writes to the Philippians in chapter 4. There are two ladies. One was Euodias, another one was Synche, and he tells those women to be one in mind. The opposition needs to unite. There's never been a transition or takeover of power unless people unite. So, whereas one of the writers, Pecos Tessa, the late said that a revolution in a country is determined by its own environment, and you cannot impose your own perception of a revolution or perception of a takeover of government by way of forcing people to unite. That he was referring to what Muammar Gaddafi had told them when they come back to Uganda, that they should work together. That's what many leaders were telling them. But I can tell you, currently in the environment we have, we thank the NRM government to the extent that we now have a kind of opposition that comes up not to take up arms, but rather to think in the direction of elections. It can only work out if, to become the majority, you need many people. So we have now 26 political parties in Uganda that are registered. And I don't think that will ever take over power. So my only advice to the political parties is that they should unite opposition. And lastly, to our fellow youth, let us think. It is not necessary for you to join a political party until you appreciate what they stand for. I might stand not in a political party, but I can appreciate certain values in different political parties. Until then, be careful to make a choice, because at the end of the day, you will find yourself affiliated to a political party, and then you find you're taking advantage of the transfer window like it is in the football these days. Like now, Paul Muir has taken advantage of the transfer window and is now changing. So let us remember to think through the choices so that later on we don't regret. Thank you very much.
Yeah, interesting. Let's now spend the next 20 minutes talking about the students' loan scheme. To me, it's very regrettable that as a government, we have money for other things, but we cannot finance and support students who are less privileged to attain credible education. And, you know, in the words of Nelson Mandela, is that education is an equalizer. That, you know, wherever you come from, given a chance to attain education, I think you can compete with anyone. So, who do I start with? Okay, let's start with the guild president. Your Excellency, students who cannot afford to pay tuition for higher education in the next financial year will not get support from government. As the student leader, how does that augur to you?
Well, appreciating the fact that the government has provided our students' loan scheme for the previous years since 2014, it has been beneficial to very many, and they are witnesses and give testimonies to how the students' loan scheme has enabled them to concentrate on their academics and excellently pass their exams. But this statement that the government will not afford to give loans to the students caught us unaware. We were not ready for it because so many people had already applied for the students' loan scheme, hoping that this is actually where they can get their higher education from, and this was their only source of income to finance their academic journey and graduate. But when it came to the public notice that the student loan scheme will not be disbursed of this year, I will talk on behalf of Victoria University. It really left us in a muse, and we're like, can this really happen? How about the students who have actually been relying on this as their own source of income? How about the girl in West Nile who is hoping to join university and the loan scheme is their only hope? What are they going to do? You see that so many people are going to drop out. Of course, others are not going to continue with their education because they cannot afford it. Tertiary education is quite expensive, even if it looks not to be. But the fact that there is no money to finance this, where does it leave us as a country? As Victoria University, in our few meetings that we have held, we hope to actually give students who qualify to attain the students' loan scheme free education for this year, on condition that the government will refund this money when they get it in the incoming years. So this is the only hope that the students are having, because they need to attain education, and as a university which is growing and which wishes that their clients who are students attain education, we have a better plan for them, and that is the one. But how about those students who apply for their hope was and then the loan scheme is not happening? What is going to happen there? I think the government should actually look into it, because it does not make sense for government to always have money to finance other activities and disburse of millions of money into activities which are deemed to be productive but are not actually touching a person's life or their education. So it is always best, because there is a great saying which says that education is wealth. It is the key to success. If you cannot attain education, what is your other key? Of course, government has come up with so many measures to implement on the education of the country, to make it hands-on, to make it competence-based. These are all things we appreciate, because you will realize that being based on an education system that is solely pen and paper is not the only way to go, because you're training people who are going to seek jobs instead of creating them. But now the government has come up with a new education system whereby you are creating job creators. Even the job seekers will be there, but they can still create their own jobs in the long run, and they can sustain their lives. So how about government coming up with other programs to make sure that people are employed, or they can start up their own business and they can fund their education. The students' loan scheme has been very useful, very helpful, because it gives you a grace period on when to pay back. You're not worried. You can concentrate.
But there is an interest that accrues to that money. That as a student, even when you finish your education and you have to repay back, you're paying it back at an interest. Alan,
It's like 8%.
Yeah, between 7 to 8%. Yeah, Alan, let me get to you. You look at our of course, owing to the structural adjustment programs and etc., that came with aspects of privatization and things like that. Most of our social services are being run by the private sector. And you find that education is being dominated by private players, which has made it very expensive and inaccessible. So if you have a private-led education system or sector, then projects like the Students' Loan Scheme become vital. So when government halts this particular funding, what does it mean for those students who are less privileged, who cannot afford education?
The last intake of the higher education students, I think, financing board, the intake was about 600 something.
Yeah.
It was less than the 1,400 something in 2014. It showed how much the government is now reluctant on implementing what people will count as a good idea in the very environment we see. You alluded to the structured adjustment programs, which came with initiatives of cost sharing. Yeah. Then before that, we had Makerere University as the only university, and people would go there only on government merit. Subsequently, after the adjustment of the structuring of the education system, we had so many students have a chance to enter into those institutions, especially Makerere University, and then the other institutions that were set up later on private. But then disparities continued to arise because these institutions are expensive, and it's very hard for people from peasantry backgrounds to obtain education and attain, a future that they would desire. So the government was devising many, means to see how best they can have these kinds of people also attain education. And the best way was to give them a loan. And Uganda is not the first country to give students loans. Many countries have done it, even our neighbors, including Tanzania, Kenya, they have done it. But the challenge is usually on sustainability. When the government cannot sustain its own initiatives, which we have always seen in Uganda, you will hear they have started NADS, it disappears, they have started Myoga, I don't know, it started PDM, I don't know, they've started this and this. Those things they fail to sustain. You see, the reduction from 2014, now you see 600, and now there is no one. It shows the trajectory that that initiative took. It means it could not be sustained because the initiative was meant to operate in a manner that when someone finishes education, they get time to pay back. But people are unemployed, so they cannot pay back even in the 5-year period that is given. So you find that such people cannot pay back, the government cannot get back its money. To them, they are making losses, which money would have been invested in other ventures. That is why you see that a government, which I say that we are broke as a country currently, cannot recruit any more civil servants because money was invested in so many things that the money cannot return to the national treasury. So to that extent, government will try to get more money from any way possible. They are putting up taxes, but devising means of taxing everything, but it is all not working out because all the initiatives they start are not well monitored. The returns are not well monitored. Money is just squandered anyhow. They give people the loan scheme. They are not followed up. They don't get back that money. The students suffer. They would have gotten the advantage. What you asked me is, what is the fate of those who would have benefited? It is quite clear to us. The people who would have benefited from the loan scheme are people who come from the very backgrounds. So we come from peasantry backgrounds, where you find that survival in any institution. I'll give you my personal example. For me to be in high school, in the school where I studied from, where school fees was over 1 point something, my father would not have afforded with other like 6 children in school. I got a scholarship from MasterCard. That's how I was able to study in high school, in a good school, and then come to Makerere. And even then, the support I get is from people around who studied from government support. So this means that the moment someone who would have benefited from such an arrangement fails to get tuition, fails to go to university, there is a whole generation that will follow that person that will never go to school. Leave alone looking at this person who has failed to get their own scheme. The very generations that will have benefited from him, for example, if my siblings are paying my tuition, my accommodation, and what, then the person, if I would have grown up without getting such an opportunity because those siblings never got an opportunity on government sponsorship. That means me as a person, I would never have studied in any good institution. Maybe I would be in the village doing some other thing or be married somewhere. So it literally means that the whole ripple effect of this is not just on that very individual looking at. What was the intention of the government bring up loan scheme? It was that they bring up a balance. Both the poor and the rich can study. Then they can change the the economic environment of all the people of Uganda, at least to a moderate situation. But right now we have more poor youth because we have very many youth in Uganda. Majority of us are very young people who are supposed to be in institutions of learning, but we cannot afford. So the failure of government to sustain its initiatives, all the initiatives that government brings up that involve handing over money, that involve giving out money, and the government itself has failed to sustain them, is a total disadvantage to the entire citizenry, that we do not just look at the beneficiaries at hand, but we should continue to look at what comes in later on after such a person has failed to get an opportunity.
Yeah, Nimrod, let me get to you. Uganda loses around 10 trillion Uganda shillings to corruption every financial year. Taxes foregone because of incentives that we give to investors, and this is according to the Auditor General's report, amounts to around 7 trillion Uganda shillings. What the students need for next financial year is 6.7 billion only. So a government that loses money to corruption, that foregoes taxation because of incentives, that has money to facilitate a parliament of that size, cannot find 6 billion Uganda shillings. Even if the students are not paying back, what loss is 6.7 billion in a financial year to a government that cares about the future of its people
and organizes functions every time?
Thank you. Like a great African nationalist, Madiba once said that education is the only weapon that we can use to change the world. It's not any different in this country that I join no goodwill Uganda and who think that it's only education that can change this country. It is a very painful topic to me. I come from a district called Namisindwa, very far east. In my district, I was the only one in Makerere. And when I left, we were like 3, because in our association, we could not raise people, they are not there. Now that speaks exactly what it is. They cannot afford higher education. I don't want to talk about regional balance and anything in terms of what we see in higher education institutions. But it is so tough that my government, that I support well, has not been able to explain to us why such a thing is going on. When I was reading the Auditor General's report that was presented on the Public Accounts Committee in 2022, it indicated that around 13,300 something are beneficiaries, 13,000 plus beneficiaries of the students' loan scheme. Among them, 3,000 who had completed school and are working, only 30% were on their line of paying the loan. Meaning only 300 students out of 13,000 that are being sponsored by government were in the line of clearing their loan. The also question that I have to the board, why are they not following up? 2, if they foresee these matters that the government will not be able to fund that, what were they waiting for to cause this alarm? They're causing an alarm now when the budget has been read, that there is no way. Maybe until our parliament makes it among the addendums on the budget, they put as a priority and supplementary budgets, which I don't think it will happen. But that's something I would push for with all my heart and soul and my vein, that such thing cannot be stopped. Because reality is people are poor. Where I come from, I know that people cannot afford to teach students, their kids on campus. They're poor. Now, as much as I allowed the government that there are a number of interventions since the NRM government came in power that have been there to help ascertain education in this country, merit, this sweet water system, with all its issues, they're being able to help people to achieve, and privatization of higher education, that when you came to power, it was only Makerere and the only government sponsorship that we could reach Makerere. But now any citizen who is having some money can be able, and with the cutoff points, can be able to attain education in Makerere. So as much as I allowed government on such kind of interventions to help citizens to achieve higher education, it is extremely sad that the Ministry of Education sits back and observes such absurdity going on, that there is cut off of 6 billion shillings. Now that, to me, it is a call that everyone that is concerned, I believe we should all rise up in supporting that. This must come as a supplementary budget or something, but we must be able to support. We need more money. I would love to call on these following agencies: the Uganda National Students Association, the National Youth Council, the Youth Parliament, the Ministry of Education. Kindly, let's take this matter as an urgent matter. It is very sad that we are fighting dropouts, and the students applied for this money to be able to pursue their higher education, and now they cannot continue just because 6 billion were not available. As National Council, you are saying you need more money to facilitate. At least let's also join forces and ask the government to consider the supplementary budget to ensure that students in this country who deserve it kindly get the money to continue pursuing their higher education. But in conclusion on the matter, I think it's also important that as students, we look at also alternatives of funding of higher education. The number of NGOs, the number of other areas that we can also look into. As much as we are pushing for the loan scheme, it is important that those who have got, please kindly repay, because according to the Auditor's General's report, they also put it as a point to why they don't want to fund it anymore, because they think they're not recovering any money from it. Those who have benefited from it, it is important that they pay back so that they can enable another person to also get a chance. Yeah. But it is also important, students of this country, you look around other alternatives as we await on this. But this one, I believe we should all join forces, all this organization, from the ministry to every Ugandan, that we ask for a supplementary budget from our members of parliament on matters of student loan scheme. Thank you.
All right. Lastly,
yeah, you see, you should educate a generation to win a generation to inspire the next generation. And education engineers civilization, innovation, and creativity. Now, I want to say that I was really heartbroken, hearing this, because actually I believe education should be free because it's a fundamental right that everyone must have access to education. But however, because there are other things affiliated, I was really happy about the loan scheme, because it had created, an atmosphere where someone who was not able to get government's sponsorship and also doesn't have money, to join university on private, had an alternative of the government loan scheme. But this clearly tells us how disorganized the regime in power is, because you cannot come up with an initiative and not properly plan for its sustainability. So the poor governance is the one bringing all these uncertainties and ending up affecting, this current generation. And the moment this current generation is not educated and civilized, then expect the worst, from the next generation. So I believe this should be a national matter. It should not be it should not be politicized, but we really need to come together and find out the best way of how this can be resolved, that the students can continue with their studies as we try and find better alternatives. But this thing of saying now the money is not there, kids have to drop out, I mean, you never know, you're now going to start incubating criminals. Because an idle man is a devil man's what? Worship temple. So we really need to take this serious and find alternative ways of how the kids can go back to school as the responsible people try to sort out and find, you know, alternative ways of to get money in order to now facilitate especially the institutions. But those kids should not be you know, chased. The institution should now act as a parent, accommodate them, let them carry on with studies as they try to sort the matter.
Well, what more can I say except asante sana in the spirit of Pan-Africanism. Thank you very much, Calvin, Nimrod, Kata, and Alan for your time. And of course, to the viewers, it's always a pleasure having you every single Wednesday afternoon. That is just it. Until next week, same time, same place, have a lovely afternoon and a lovely week.